Welcome back, everyone. Good evening. We are coming back from our closed session and reconvening the open session of the October 20th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Angel, can you please recite our teleconference questions for each participant?
Yes. Eve, are you able to hear our proceedings from this end?
Sorry.
Can you say it again?
Eve, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for the meeting?
Yes,
Has the agenda been posted at your location?
yes,
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of the teleconference meeting from your location?
yes,
President Collins-Coleman, Vice President Shogun, Trustee Weiner, and Trustee Anantavad, can you hear Eve?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. Since this meeting is being conducted via teleconference, all actions will be taken by roll call vote.
Thank you, Angel. All right, we have some action that was taken in closed session. For item 3B, a majority of the board voted by roll call vote to approve a compromise agreement to resolve potential and threatened claims against the district to date from the parents of a student in exchange for a total not to exceed $8,643.78 in funding for privately incurred educational services. This was a roll call vote, and each board member's vote turned into a unanimous vote.
Yes.
And then for item 3C, a majority of the board voted by roll call vote to approve a compromise agreement to resolve potential and threatened claims against the district to date from the parents of a student in exchange for a total not to exceed $2,500 in funding for privately incurred educational services. Again, this was a roll call vote that ended in unanimous vote. With that, let's all rise to say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some just procedural information around public comment. At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, the public comment may comment on items with the subject matter jurisdiction of the governing board. For items on the agenda, the public may comment at the time the board considers the agenda items. For items not on the agenda, the public may comment under item 6A, public comment. The Board of Trustees requests that individuals who would like to address the Board of Trustees on an item to do so by filling out a request to address the OUSD school board card and turn it into the superintendent prior to the agenda item. Cards are available at the meeting on that table over there behind the podium. For those online, please do also complete the form available on the board agenda website before said item on the agenda. Lastly, comments are limited to not more than 3 minutes. Groups are asked to limit their comments to a total of 5 minutes. The board shall limit the total time of public comments to 20 minutes. To comply with the Brown Act, the board may listen to comments from the speakers, but can neither discuss nor take action on the issues presented. Is there any public comment?
Yes, we have 3 comments. So we'll go with Yasmin.
Right now?
Yes, Amy, come on up. And
Hi there, my name is Yasmin.
oh no, I'm coming up to the podium here. Yes.
Even better. My name's Yasmin Zaini. I am a Glorietta parent, and I'm here because we had a major change in our after-school care program recently that didn't sit well with many of us. We felt we were not consulted, we were not informed, it wasn't even on our radar. And so a bunch of us, since we weren't really asked as parents, we came up with our own survey, and 131 families responded to the survey. And the questions that were asked were basically, how has Ashley Cruz, who was the person that was moved over to a different school, how has she affected your family or your children? And the second question was, what would you like to see done about it? And the third question is, what are your concerns? So we got a plethora of answers, and I just wanted to kind of go over some of those responses really quick. This is from the greater Glorietta community, just so that we're sure that our voices are being heard as parents who invest a lot of time and resources and money and effort into making sure this is the best community it can be, because we care that much. We did not feel that our voices were heard at all. Emails that were sent were responded to with canned answers. We all got the same answers. I understand that they got a large volume of emails and concerns, but at the same time, that should be a red flag. Something's wrong here. If everybody is so upset over this one change, maybe we should take a look at it. Maybe we should reconsider, or maybe we should give the public more information since this is a public school. I understand there's HR things too that you guys can't discuss details, but it was very abrupt for our community, and it was jarring for the children. And going forward, I would hope that we as parents and the community would be given, one, more advance notice, and two, more transparency. Just a couple of quick things. Ashley Cruz was known as the safe person for the kids. The kids always knew they could go to her, and she was a safe and respected person. She was always respectful and responsive to parents who had concerns with, the safety of their children. She was organized. She was knowledgeable. She knew every single child and every single family to a T in a way that I cannot imagine anyone else being able to handle. She's really gifted in that realm. Let's see. A lot of families are going to be pulling their children out of basket Glorietta because they're not happy with how things are getting run now. A lot of the comments that I received, or not I received, but we received it from the survey, basically said they're not happy with the leadership there now, that the leadership is rude, the leadership is disrespectful, there's fighting amongst the staff in front of our children, and none of it is really acceptable to us. So we just want the board to know, because when we're reaching out to the Basque leadership, nothing's being done per se, or we're not being told what's being done, and then we're hearing comments.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We have Raynell Cole, and then Allison will be after that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Raynell Cole. I'm also a parent at Glorietta Elementary. And just to add on to what Yasmin was saying, Ashley was a beloved member of the community, permanent fixture in Glorietta, not just in school, but outside of the community as well. For over 10 years, she's taken a lot of care in building relationships with just the children and parents and the families. And so the abruptness of her removal was a little bit concerning and jarring, especially because we didn't get any feedback as to why she was removed. And so the lack of transparency didn't sit well. And why was she removed from our school and then moved to a different school? It didn't really make a lot of sense. And so I think just moving forward, I don't know how we're going to address the here and now, but moving forward, it would be really appreciated if maybe the board or the organization solicited feedback from all the parents, or at least some of the parents. We didn't get any kind of, and we didn't get that opportunity at all. So it would be great if moving forward, that's something that could be addressed. And so I think with her leaving and the children being, personally, I told my daughter that you can say goodbye to her next time you see her, but there was not that opportunity. She was very upset about it and was really not wanting to go back because because of the instability. And you can tell, when I pick her up, the staff members who are left there are either, scared or trepidatious when talking to us, and doesn't really build a lot of confidence and trust in us having our children there when they can't even, speak to us directly. So I hope that there's a way that we can, build trust back in some way, because it's very unsettling how this all came about.
Thank you.
And Allison Oransky.
Hi, thank you everybody for the time today. My name is Allison Arunsky. I have a second grader and a TKer at Glorietta, and raising a very similar concern to previous parents. I really would like the board to look into the Basque program. I think that there's toxicity and that is filtering through to the staff. We believe that leadership is not addressing our concerns. And we believe that our students and our children are not being fulfilled in the way that brought us to this Orinda community and the way that we believe that this community moves forward with things. To the point, there was a petition created by 100+ families asking for very similar asks in regards to the board looking into this from an outsider's in perspective, and also allowing us to have another method of feedback besides just email to a couple of folks. We really believe that this is important for not only our families, but the future families that will be part of the BAS program. And most importantly, the staff that are so influential into our kids' lives. They deserve a healthy and safe environment. And I believe this is not being suited towards them. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any more public comment. Do you have anything online? So that's all for public comment.
All right, thank you. Moving to action items 6A, B, and C, resolutions for bullying prevention awareness month and diversity awareness month. And the purchase and sale agreement of the nature area. We'll start with the bullying prevention awareness month resolution.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Okay. Getting there, I promise. Here we go. Okay, well, we're excited to bring you this resolution, so 2608. And just before we ask the board to hopefully read the resolution, we just wanted to say that, I mean, clearly we take all forms of bullying very seriously in Orinda and monitor data very closely. Actually, in the spring, we come in with a presentation around the data. And this year, it's going to be a Healthy Kids survey presentation, which is going to be administered. The survey is going to be administered first week of November or second week of November this year, which is we try to administer around the same time. There are a lot of questions around bullying, connectedness in the schools, and also cyberbullying. And then we also we have a whole module around bullying prevention and second step curriculum in the elementary schools, and then our OIS counselors do their own curriculum that they present in all of the classrooms. So with that, then we all prevention around bullying is very important for us. So we ask the board to read the resolution and we will move forward.
All right, great. Eve, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Whereas bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior among students that includes but is not limited to physical, verbal, sexual, or emotional harm or intimidation intentionally directed at a person or group of people, and
whereas bullying includes but is not limited to exclusions, put-downs, name-calling, aggressive physical contact, unwanted jokes, comments, or taunts, destruction of property, enlisting someone to assault another person for the bully, and abuse of power, and
Whereas Orinda Union School District supports the right of students and staff to attend schools that are safe and free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence, and whereas providing a safe school environment that ensures both the physical and emotional safety of students and staff creates the conditions necessary to foster academic achievement, and
Whereas bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence, and even the fear of harm can create barriers to learning and contribute to low self-esteem, depression, anger, and in extreme cases, school violence or suicide, and
whereas a safe school is one where teaching and learning are not distracted, disruptions are minimized, drugs, violence, bullying, and fear are not present, students are not discriminated against, expectations for behavior are clearly communicated, and consequences for infractions are consistently and fairly applied, and
whereas the month of October is National Bullying Prevention Month, which is a campaign in response to the need to raise awareness of bullying that provides schools and communities with an opportunity to educate students, parents, and others about their role in bullying prevention.
now therefore it is resolved that the Orinda Union School District Board of Trustees hereby supports the goals of National Bullying Prevention Month and will work with parents, students, teachers, and staff to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster and support a positive school climate free from bullying, harassment, discrimination, and violence throughout the year.
Thank you for bringing this. Is there any comment or discussion from the board before we go to public comment?
No, just thank you. Yeah, thanks for bringing it.
Of course,
Is there any public comment?
no comments in person.
No comments online.
Okay, no public comment.
All right, thank you. Moving on to
Oh, we need to vote.
request for motion.
This is Hillary. I move that the board approve resolution 26-08, bullying prevention awareness month.
Is there a
This
second?
is Benita, second.
Trustee Phillips,
Aye.
trustee Nantapat,
Aye.
trustee Weiner,
Aye.
vice president Tobin,
Aye.
president Collins Coleman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. And now moving to Diverse Abilities Awareness Month resolution.
Well, actually, before we present that, we just wanted to have Stephanie Capuso, our Director of Special Services, share a little bit about what we're doing this week.
Definitely, we're very excited about this week. We've been working with some parents for the past couple of months on activities that all the school sites can do to make it feel like all uniformed and really highlight all of our diverse abilities going on. So every school site is doing read alouds. We have some broken down by each grade level. And then other principals have decided to go out and do the read alouds themselves. They like having those conversations. So those are going on. My favorite thing is every day there's a different topic that students are being asked, like, how do you feel like yourself? Is it when you listen to music, when you swing your body, when you touch something familiar, or when you dance? Trying to show students that we have more in common than we think, that if loud noises aren't your thing, guess what? Look at all these other students who can't handle loud noises. Or if you prefer working in small groups and other people prefer working in large groups, you can look and see how many other students are like you. So these posters are being done in the classroom at most sites. Some sites are doing it outside during lunch. On the way to lunch, they put their sticker on the topic that they feel most confident about, and then they're having those discussions in the classroom. At OIS, they're utilizing KOIS to do some interviews. They're asking students about their unique abilities and asking them about how they feel most confident about themselves, and talking about the Wall of Heroes, which is, everyone says it's one of their favorite activities to do, which is where we highlight different people in our community and the world who are very successful, who also have their own unique abilities, and how they've overcome those or utilized them to make them even more spectacular than they already are. And so it's just a nice way to highlight people who might not be typically successful, how you would look when you expect that student who's supposed to do everything a certain way, but looking at there are other ways to learn and you can be successful and have an excellent time at school. And then on Friday, we're wearing orange because it is the official color for diverse abilities.
That's wonderful.
So with that, we present the resolution for you.
All right, Pete, you want to start off again?
Sure. Thank you. Whereas establishment of the American Disability Act, or ADA, in 1990 acknowledges the contributions of individuals with disabilities and promotes advocacy and education about the value of a society inclusive of their skills and talents. And
Whereas the Orinda Union School District during the 2025-2026 school year serves approximately 415 students formally identified with disabilities or requiring accommodations established through an individualized education program, or IEP, or Section 504 plan, about 15% of total student population. And
Whereas diverse abilities are part of being human, and almost everyone will temporarily or permanently experience diverse abilities at some point in their life. And
Whereas there are diverse meanings and experiences of disability, visible and not visible. And
Whereas the OUSD recognizes intersectional identities of individuals with diverse abilities, impacting equitable access and opportunities. And
whereas the OUSD holds high expectations of individuals with diverse abilities and recognizes they have the capacity to contribute positively to their communities and learning experiences. And
whereas the OUSD recognizes that ableism is a core barrier to equity and inclusion, and that all members of the district community have a role to play in creating an inclusive society. And
whereas the OUSD will hold conversations, presentations, and projects relating to and enhancing the experiences of individuals with diverse abilities, disrupting ableism, and promoting inclusion and belonging in October and throughout the year. And
whereas the OUSD will continue our strong commitment to supporting students with diverse abilities. And
Therefore, be it resolved that the Orinda Union School District Board of Trustees does hereby adopt this resolution to honor October 2025 Diverse Abilities Awareness Month.
Okay.
All right, and we need a motion. This is up for action.
Before we do that, I just wanted to thank Stephanie and everyone who's worked on this week. It's become so much more consistent every year. Even just since I joined the board, it's so much more consistent. I think that's really great that there's some uniformity across schools and a really intentional approach to it in the classrooms.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we've confirmed that there's
No
no public comment. And so this item is up for action. If we could have a motion.
This is Vanita. I move that we approve resolution number 26-09, Diverse Abilities Awareness Month over 2025.
This is Hillary, I'll second.
Trustee Phillips,
Aye.
trustee Nantavant,
Aye.
trustee Weiner,
Aye.
vice president Shogun,
Aye.
president Collins Coleman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Now we come to the purchase and sale agreement of Wagner Ranch Nature Area, item 6C. Time, and so I'll turn it over to Rita,
Yes.
and I know we'll also do from Harold.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out how I can navigate this without staring at myself. Okay, well, this has been an item that I think we've been waiting for a long time to bring for an action. We have had this item here for discussion for quite a long time, but it's been quite a bit, it's been a journey, I will say. So we're going to talk about the Wagner Ranch Nature Area, and I do have our attorney here, Harold Freeman. Thank you so much for being here to support us, especially as we get towards the end. So before we get there, though, I just wanted to talk a little bit about a background of how we got there. I won't spend too much time on that, but just a quick overview of the property ownership and boundaries, and just some historical maintenance and upkeep, and which leads up of why we're actually making this recommendation for an action, what the current status is of the nature area, and then Harold will hopefully help us, well, not hopefully, you won't be me, I'll go over the purchase and sale agreement. So with that, we have reviewed this before, so I'll go through it pretty quickly, but if the board has any questions, please let me know. But Wagner Ranch Elementary School property was obtained by the district from East Bay Mud back in 1956. And 9 years later, in 1965, the elementary school was built on those parcels. And then with a large section of the property remaining undeveloped, which then became to be known Wagner Ranch Nature Area. So there's been many surveys and property lines and so on over the history. It's since the 1965, but on a direction of the board, we did a most recent land survey and appraisal back in December of 2024 in January, so that we can make sure and get absolutely accurate property lines. We also wanted to make sure to stake the division between OUSD and East Bay Mud, and then assess what could the property be used for. So the Wagner Ranch Elementary School is actually, the entire property is one big property subdivided into 4 parcels, and 2 of those are developed with school facilities and 2 are undeveloped. And that's how we're talking about it. So as you can see on these slides right here, this is the kind of the Google Earth image with the, and then the parcels are subdivided right there, as you can see the surveys. So, and they match up next to each other, as you can see by this interesting jagged line right there. So on these 2 parcels right there is where the development is, with all the facilities of the school and the blacktops and all the fields. And then these 2 parcels right here in the upper left are the 2 undeveloped parcels that have been a nature area. And just kind of for orientation, you can see this little snake-looking line right there. That's the access road with the solar panels right there. And that kind of corresponds right about here in that property line. So
So with that, here's actually a bigger picture of that. So the East Bay Mud property is just to outside of our property here. It's actually all around us, really all around our border lines. But the fields are right here. The corner is right here around the blacktop. And then there's two gardens. One garden is the school garden, and then this is the nature area garden, or what we call the nature area garden. And then the solar panels are right there, just kind of for orientation purposes. Any questions so far? Okay. So historically, really the historical upkeep, it's been done. It's been preserved and maintained for years through dedication of our community members, which I see a few of them in the back row over there. And it's been a tremendous dedication through our volunteers. Oh, yeah, we got a wave. Yes. But through our organizations and citizen donations, it really has fallen on our volunteers. And for a size of that property and a lot of nature there, it's actually been tremendous upkeep. There's been significant conservation efforts have been made in the past year to maintain Wagner Ranch Nature Area in the natural state. And it is in its natural state right now. And it's really, there's been a lot of effort to make sure that it's conserved as undeveloped property. In addition to just conservation, which is a huge effort, and maintenance, the organizations have been running science and social studies programs, and those have been run in prior years in collaboration with the district and the partnerships through the really Friends of the Nature Area. And then many volunteer opportunities were there for youth and adult groups, and they've been available historically for many years, if not decades. But then the very damaging storms of 2022-23 hit, and there was the nature area really suffered tremendous damage, mainly with many fallen trees. I think 40, 50, 60 trees that were fallen and still continue to fall. A lot of the paths, if not most of them, have been eroded, and then the creek damages that have made that area completely inaccessible, or at least safely inaccessible to our students and our staff. In addition to that, because of the increased concerns with fire safety in our state and new fire mitigation requirements and regulation, our zoning in the fire in Orinda, there are new mitigation requirements that have been placed. So there's an ongoing focus on the safety in the area. And then with that also, there's some existing structures that have been deemed that we can't use them because they don't meet the Department of State Architects or DSA or district standards, and they were not built to code. So those were all various reasons why we have not been able to reopen the nature area and why we can't reopen it in the state that it's in. So current status, it's been closed since those storms in 2023. We actually reopened the garden, the nature area garden, for the use by the volunteers and Friends of the Nature Area projects. Unfortunately, and I put the picture of the greenhouse, due to those structures not being up to code, we had to then since shut it down because it's not being built to code. So it's completely closed down, all parts of it. So that's the sad current status of it. So ongoing considerations that have been discussed here over the numerous meetings are, this is really our goals, are that we are committed as a district to ensuring permanent conservation of the property. We want to continue making sure that those large 2 parcels are permanently conserved and there's no buildings being built on there and they're not developed. We also want to bring back education. We want to return the outdoor education there. We want to return the science-based programming or environmental science-based programming to that area. And we want to make sure that there's partnerships, opportunities with the city of Orinda, with youth organizations, with the Orinda organizations to make sure that we can bring back the volunteering, celebrations, and so on. So those are sort of 3-part goals that this board has been committed to and the staff as we move forward. It's just how do we do that? So that's what we've been discussing, is that the district does not have the budget or the means to support the land there or support the property. So up for discussion has been here at the prior meetings of what we can do is place that land and conservation with a reputable trust, which that's what we've been doing in the last many months, is negotiating potential conservation or partnership with those two parcels with a trust, which is the John Muir Land Trust. So I'm going to ask Carol to come up and tell us about how that would work and what that would look like, unless the board has questions prior to that. Okay. Tell me what you want me to project.
I think having an image up there is perfect.
Okay.
So what I would say about the agreement that you have before you tonight, it looks a lot thicker than it is, because you'll look at the exhibits, because there's those 4 parcels. Every time we had to have an exhibit that describes something, we sort of had to do it multiple times by pieces. So there's very thick exhibits. The agreement itself is 17 pages long, one of which is a signature page. So in the world of real property agreements for selling school district property, this is actually not that extensive. So what I want to do is just walk you through some of the main points. To start with, just to remind you, the district previously reached an agreement with the city, who was holding the funds that were acquired by your Assemblywoman's office. It's $1.5 million. And one of the things we've been trying to work through is how do we get the funds to you from the city when we're reaching an agreement with John Muir Land Trust. So you previously reached an agreement with the city. What that agreement with the city said is that when they basically get proof, and I'll explain how it works, that you've entered into the agreement with John Muir Land Trust, that's gone into escrow and you're ready to close, the escrow officer through title will notify the city. There's a notice form included here, and that triggers the city releasing the funds to you. So that was part of the triangulation we had to do. So with that, just to walk you through some of the key points of the agreement becomes effective when it's approved by both bodies. So it's going to you first, and then it will go to the John Muir Land Trust Board. Once it's signed by both parties on the latter date, whoever signs last, that will be the effective date of the agreement, which will trigger some things that we'll be talking about. So from there, when we have the effective date, the agreement is in place. And again, it's a purchase agreement. You are selling that piece of property to John Muir Land Trust. That will start a 21-day due diligence period. That's calendar days for John Muir Land Trust to have entry onto the property to make sure that everything looks okay with them and that they're ready to move forward. The good news is that representatives of John Muir Land Trust have already been on the site. They've done a lot of investigation. So that's why that's a pretty short time period, really, for them to finish that up. Unless they indicate otherwise before the end of that 21 days, we've cleared due diligence and we're moving forward with the sale. Also during that time period, John Muir Land Trust will be reviewing the title documents to make sure that they're satisfied with everything in the preliminary title report. There's also a 21-day period there, so everything runs parallel. Once we get through that period, assuming everything is moving forward on that 21st day, that will start a time period for close, and it's another 21 days maximum to get to the close. So the outside period we're looking at from the time period where everybody signs the agreement is about 42 days to get there, which, believe it or not, in real estate is a relatively quick close of escrow. It's often longer than that for this type of property. One of the things too, just to note, is that an important part of the agreement, there are 2 easements that are included as exhibits. So an easement is basically something that gives you a right to go onto somebody else's property and use that property. So we have easements that are running in both directions that are attached to the agreement. One of them gives the school district access to what will become John Muir Land Trust property for 2 purposes. One is to access and serve your solar panels. The actual base of the solar panels is on your property, but to get to them and serve the actual panels, there's a 10-foot easement approximately that extends beyond the end point of the panels. So you'll be able to have access and continue to serve those panels because you're going to retain the road, the driveway that takes you in, and everything uphill or below of that road. You can kind of see the road there on the left side of that picture. You'll be retaining that, everything to the, I'm bad directionally, so I'm going to say above or to the right of that driveway, all the way up on those two parcels to the left will become John Muir Land Trust. So you still have access to the solar. The other thing you have access to is the maintenance road that the superintendent pointed out. You kind of see in the middle, that sort of whitish line. There was a little trick to putting all of this together because you would have been left owning a little piece of the maintenance road and the bulk of it would have become John Muir Land Trust. It's very awkward to have one road owned by two different people. So we actually had the surveyor draw the line so that there's a little point that sticks out so that all of the road, the maintenance road, is becoming John Muir Land Trust. But you have an easement that allows you to continue to access it to get to the point that you need to, because there's parts of your property to access, you need to have access to that road. So those are the easements that run in your favor. The easements that run in the favor of John Muir Land Trust is you will now own that driveway, continue to own it all the way through, is to give John Muir Land Trust access to the driveway and to your parking area during non-school hours. So if you have a school event, you have priority for that parking. It's a school day, you have priority for that parking. At other times, John Muir Land Trust has the ability to use the parking and also access that driveway. And it's worth noting too, John Muir Land Trust has discussed and the agreement allows them to, if they need to down the road at the entry point onto the driveway on what will be their property, that's one way now, is to turn that into two-way. And so that's something that may come down the road. It will be done with cooperation of the district. Yeah, somewhere over there. There you go. That at
Just
some
for that
point
little
that
section right there.
right. So that's another way for John Muir Land Trust for people who are accessing the property to be able to get in, turn around without going all the way down the driveway and through the school district property. So those are easements that get recorded. They become part of the title of the property. They're there for all time and they protect both parties' access and interest. And that was really a lot of what we spent the time working on to work out those details. But just a few other things to point out about the agreement. Under the agreement, John Muir Land Trust will be constructing a fence between your properties at their expense. The exact location of the fence, the design of the fence, et cetera, will be discussed between the parties. So they'll be consulting with the district, but they will move forward with putting that in by a date in May of 2026, potentially could be earlier, to have a clear division between the two properties. Another piece of the agreement that's worth mention is that, and this is something the board was interested in, is that it expressly states in the agreement that John Muir Land Trust will still be allowing access for educational opportunity on the nature area. That has to come in the form of an organized district event. So it basically spells out if you have a field trip and you want to go to the nature area, you can do so. It does carve out the ability of the John Muir Land Trust to say no if they have something previously scheduled and give you notice of that, or if there's an emergency. So other than that, you will be able to coordinate with them to have access, not just for your students, but students in general. So other groups that want to come in as well, that will all be organized. And for all of this, there's indemnity that runs in all the right directions, meaning when you have a field trip on their property, you are indemnifying John Muir Land Trust if somebody gets injured as part of that field trip. If, for example, John Muir Land Trust is using your driveway and somebody gets injured, they have to indemnify you for that. If you're accessing your solar and something happens, you have to indemnify them for that. So that's all laid out in the agreement as well. Also important to the agreement, and you heard this from the superintendent, what will happen when we record this is that you will see in the grant deed, it actually creates essentially a permanent conservation protection of the property. So what it basically says is that for all time, John Muir Land Trust will use this for conservation purposes, for education-related purposes, will not be developed. And we further built into that if at any point John Muir Land Trust were to sell the site or deed the site to somebody else, that will also run with the land. It will also bind any future owners. So we are essentially taking those two parcels there on the left out of development potential for all time, which has been one of the objectives of everybody through this whole process. So this accomplishes that. And then just one last thing to note about the agreement. One of the things that came up as we were discussing is that you are surrounded by EBMUD. And so one of the things that we included in the agreement is that if EBMUD is doing anything that's affecting one or the other pieces of the property, that you will attempt to keep the other informed so that there's no surprises if EDMA notifies John Muir Land Trust they're coming on to do something in a way that's going to affect your property, the school property. John Muir Land Trust will give you a heads up on that, vice versa, just to keep the communication flowing. So that is the gist of the agreement. The last piece of that, again, as I mentioned up front, there's an exhibit at the end. The title company will be given this letter that's already filled out for them. When everything has been submitted to them and they get a go, they send that to the city. And within 48 hours of their receipt, they send it to the city, and then the city releases the funds into the district. So we have this running again 3 ways. So we've listened to everything we've heard from the community, the board. We've tried to include everything. We hit some bumps along the way at the end, just very technical issues. The surveyor was great, did a wonderful job addressing all of those. So we think we're at the finish line, and I'm happy to be there because it's not a long haul.
Indeed.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Harold. One question, well, I guess 2 questions. One around the solar panel access and maintenance. I think it was like section 5B or whatever under the agreement. How does that work? How do we ensure there's like notification requirements, like access restrictions, coordination, to make sure that John Muir Land Trust and the district avoid operational disruption?
Yeah, so there's language throughout the agreement about keeping each other informed and coordinating efforts. The fact is, the solar panel example, you have an easement. You can go on and treat those panels as you need to treat them when you need to treat them.
Okay. So easements, we can use easements at any time.
Correct.
Access where we don't have to give notification.
And then my second question is around field trip scheduling and capacity. Like, how do we, around the coordination? I know it's, what is mutually acceptable around that, especially with, I understand the, school hours, I understand after school hours, but for field trips, for our students or other students, what is that?
So the way that it works now is if you want to have a field trip, you give notice of that field trip, and you have to have appropriate insurance in place and the indemnification applies. And again, the way that the agreement is written is unless John Muir Land Trust comes back and says we have an event scheduled, there's a conflict, or again, if there's an emergency, trees come down, whatever happens, and there's no access, you have the right to get in and have that field trip. They have the right to be notified that you're coming on and bringing those students, but there's not an approval process where John Muir Land Trust has to say, yes, this one's okay or this one isn't.
Okay, thank you.
But we'll have a point person, right, that we'll probably identify so that we know who to
From a
contact.
calendar schedule.
For the year.
Well, I think there's a lot that's gonna have to happen after this goes
Yes.
through in terms of what's gonna happen with the 1.5. I mean, we'll have to have other meetings relating to these other technical points. I just want to personally thank you for all of your work on this and persevering. It has been a long time coming here. So, and I really do feel that this agreement kind of achieves everything that we had intended to, and especially this conservation piece that's running the land. I think that's critical here, and ensuring that this runs in perpetuity with the land. That's something that we've heard from our community, and as a board, we've stated that as a goal as well. So just really appreciative of all of your work on this.
Thank you.
So I've, when I joined the board, the issues around the nature area had already started. And so I've only been a part of this for a little bit compared to you all. But I mean, as Superintendent Aida said, this has been an incredible journey. And I'm so, it's taken a lot of creativity, involvement of several parties, a lot of patience with all stakeholders. So I'm just thrilled that we are at this point right now, and the fact that we're partnering with John Muir Land Trust, because they are an organization devoted to conservation, which is what we wanted for that piece of land. And the fact that now we are going to have access to the funding for our area is going to be so significant, and the things that can possibly happen there, I'm so excited for our students. So yeah, I think it's amazing, and thank you all for your hard work, and thank you to Assembly Member Rebecca and for supporting this.
Likewise, my comments are similar. I don't have any questions about the agreement. I know this has been worked on for a long time. And so I'm really very pleased with how it's ending up and that we've reached. I won't repeat everything because I agree with my colleagues. I'm really excited that this is a sustainable outcome. I think what was, when the storms happened a few years ago, it was impossible to get students back in there, and we do not have the funding, ongoing funding to support that much property. And I think this is a really great solution. It puts 2 parcels into conservation that the rest of the community can also enjoy and have access to. It's permanently in conservation, but still preserves a good amount of space, including a lot of the space that students were using for field trips previously within that parcel that has the garden on it. So I think it's just sustainable. Like we now have some resources with the 1.5 million, but we'll need to figure out other ways to fund it. But I think that it just opens up a lot of possibility for outdoor education to continue and preserve that tradition, and also kind of reimagine what it could look like for students. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Eve?
Yeah, I probably end up echoing some of my colleagues' comments, but one, again, to the many people who worked on this, thank you for that. And I think the goals that I very much wanted to see achieved were, one, the conservation of the land and the ability to keep it in its kind of in its natural state, but make it continue to be available as well for the educational programming that so many students have benefited from over the years, and we would love to see get to continue in perhaps even more interesting and innovative ways. But at the same time, as a school district, we are not particularly well set up to care for a piece of land like this, and there are other entities that are much better prepared for that. And so I feel like this is a way for us to get those benefits without the obligations that come with something like this, and let us focus on the things that a school district does best. So hopefully, I'm looking forward to the relationship that this is setting up, and you're very optimistic that this will be a good outcome for all, both for the land itself and for our students and for the community.
And I would also like to thank Rebecca Barkan and last but not least, for the Friends of the Nature area for their steadfastness and custodial commitment to the land for decades. So I did not want to be remiss and leave them out of that equation. And so with that, do you have public comment?
We have definitely 2 in person. So we can start with Kathy Barrett, and then it will be Steve Danziger after that. We're nobody online. Yep.
Good evening, trustees, staff, and visitors. You can see I'm really smiling. It's been a very long time, as you pointed out, and this looks like really good news to us. And we look forward to working with you and with the John Muir Land Trust going forward. And we're hoping that one of these days in the future, we could have volunteers back in the garden on weekends. And we're planning to continue our youth scientists program into the future, and a lot of other things too. We're a little concerned about that pond, I have to tell you, because it's gone now for a long time without steady water and the like. And it sounds like that's going to be in support of the John Muir Land Trust, which is appropriate, and they have the knowledge and resources to go forward with that. But we're hoping for those little red-legged frogs that they're painting on there. So thank you for all that you've been doing. We really appreciate that, and we look forward to working more with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Danziger.
Hello, President Collins Coleman and trustees. Steve Danziger. I'm a member of the board of Friends of the Nature area. Like along a winding road, we came back to your door here, and we're happy and optimistic that you've reached this agreement for the property to go to John Muir Land Trust. We know that organization. We know they're working in this county, in this community. I personally did some work with them in Moraga, and they were very conservation-minded, excellent to work with. And so we're hopeful that our group can continue to work with the school board, with the school district, and also with John Muir Land Trust. We're gonna have to meet with our board and decide and talk with you and with John Muir also and see what our role can be, but we hope to still be able to volunteer in both areas and continue with our programming. We'll be willing to lend our assistance and the expertise we have within our group to assist in any way we can in the future planning for your part of the property. And if maybe you'll have an ad hoc committee or maybe even a group of interested citizens to come, and maybe we'll have some workshops to talk about it once you have some kind of plan, and we want to be part of that. Hopefully there'll be a place there also for Taurus Yeager, who's been working in there for 40 years and means a lot to her. And hopefully either your part or John Muir will have something for her to do as well. She couldn't be here today, but she's following this and with all her heart. And so just thank you, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration with you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
This item is up for action. If there's not any more discussion from my colleagues, if we could have a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement.
This is Hillary. I move that the board approve the purchase and sale agreement.
This is Benita, I second.
Trustee Phillips,
Aye.
trustee Amantavat,
Aye.
trustee Weiner,
Aye.
vice president Shogun,
Aye.
president Collins Coleman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. If I can just say, there was a lot of comments. Thank you, yes. That was good. I think actually this is a historical thing, so thank you. It's been a long term coming, not just from the storms, but even prior to that. I said to Harold, is this real? All over the weekend, like, Harold, is this real? He said, not yet. So I do, before we, next steps, there are a lot of next steps. And I heard a lot of, couple comments around, wanting the community to be involved and so on. There is, and in speaking to, John Muir Land Trust, I know there's going to be community input on both sides on what's the best uses. So I know that there's a place in involvement for community. I think right now we're all I was writing 21 days and adding up. So as soon as we get through that in the escrow, then we would definitely go through some sort of community input and planning around curriculum and budgeting and what does that look like? What's the best usage? Looking for input from our students, from our staff, from our parents, and what community around both areas, and what does that look like? And we'll be agendizing that in the future here as those terms versus just around property and reopening. But with that, I also just want to personally thank Harold. There wasn't, I think, one vacation or one weekend that I had not disrupted. And I want to thank your spouse too for the number of times that he was, spouse is driving, taking the calls about the nature. I mean, this is a lot of hours. It seems like he said simple agreement, but there are a lot of intricacies of going back and forth and writing. And also, I know he's not here, but we'll write it. Daryl Alexander is our surveyor, did a phenomenal job of really just constant adjustments. And we just, it was just great team. So thank you. Really appreciate it, Harold. I know we're not there yet, but feels like it. So we really are right there. So thank you so much.
Sorry, just one final question, and we've talked about it outside of this, but just in terms of after this is finalized, assuming everything goes through, some sort of joint communication with
So there will be
office and the city and us and John Muir Land Trust. in terms of-
So we had some communications meetings, so we would talk through around press release. So once it's final and there's a closure, we would do a press release from us. And I know John Muir wants to do a press release, and we would of course want to make sure that we thank Assembly Member Rebecca Barkay and for her support on this publicly once it's all good.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, Harold.
Thank you, Harold. Appreciate it. Yes. Okay.
Okay, moving on to action item D, which is OUSD 2627 instructional.
Yes.
calendar.
Okay. Yeah, so every year we ask you to approve a calendar for the following year, and these school years are meshing in my head, but we are approving 26, 27. And we are actually getting a lot of questions already around what are the starts and end dates and when are the vacations. So we just wanted to make sure, and I just want to highlight some things around the calendar. August 11th is the first day, this is a very much a mirror calendar of this year. Still, it's a winter break is aligned pretty much the same as starting December 21, going into January 1st. We have teacher work days before school, and then right when we come back from winter break, similar professional development days at the start of the year in October and then in March. And then spring break is always that first week in April for us, and last day of school is still in May. We continuously having 180 student days, which is the requirement, and then we have 186 teacher work days. So for us, one of the main things that guides us calendars is that we're aligned to the Aquinas Union High School District. About third of our parents have their children go in both districts, so it's really important and critical that we have students in both. That there are aligned calendars on start dates, end dates, holidays. When we don't have an alignment, we tend to lose significant amount of attendance, and that is actually a significant hit on our budget. So that's a big priority for us. But other things like conference weeks and open house, back to school nights, those things can be adjusted. Sarah works with Curriculum Council to see what are the best times. And occasionally we have brought back the calendar to make those shifts as she works in the spring. But for us, the main things are the days, the instructional days to go through those. So with that,
That's a question.
Yep.
I recall a couple of years ago, we used to have like a air quality day,
Oh, yeah.
but so we don't do that.
So we did, and some districts are still holding those where you have an optional day. So for example, like on President's Day weekend, one of those days could be a smoke day. So if you have a smoke day where PSPSDA, you could actually have a day that you go on a school day, and then you make that up during the president's, like during that day. Other districts, what we would do is actually, you just add them at the end of the school year, which just turns the same thing.
Which is what East Coast does.
And that's what we would do. So basically it's like snow days, which for us would be smoke days. So we would just be adding them at the end of the year. Yeah, so yeah, we seem to be like gone through the worst of it. And so, yes, no problem. I guess the only difference here is the Veterans Day next year falls on a Wednesday. This year's probably the most unfortunate timing of the Veterans Day when it comes to being on a Tuesday. That's something that we really need to try and consider in the future. We are really encouraging high attendance on that Monday.
Just out of curiosity, what do other districts do? Is there a best practice when it comes to that? Yeah.
A day off,
We do Monday,
but
Tuesday.
then they're coming in, it's going into June.
Right.
Or starting early, that's what we considered. Either you're starting on a Monday in August, we started on a Tuesday, or your school year start going into June, or not having a PD day in October, those kind of things. Doing that as a PD day, so non-instructional, so those kind of things.
So there's opportunity for that
But,
next year, potentially.
But next year it's on a Wednesday, so that's not as bad.
Yeah, we have talked to all of those options.
Correct. We have talked about this, yes.
All right, this is up for action. Is there any public comment?
I'm sorry.
Goes to this discussion.
This is up for action.
It's an action item.
Is there any public
I would
comment?
have to comment.
Okay.
I mean, I would have done a card. Do you mind taking that?
No, fine, no, it's up to
No,
you.
it's fine.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right, I'll show up for this discussion. This is Charles Shannon, President of the Orinda Education Association. I just want to make the board and staff aware that this year the quarter for OIS ended on the Friday before the PD day. And there are times when we're asked as professionals to prepare to lead discussions or lead a training, which takes a lot of time and effort. Whereas our colleagues at the middle school need to prepare for final grades. It's the end of their quarter. And we have one day, PD day, that happened this year on Monday, following the Friday that was the end of their quarter. And it can be challenging to take on additional roles during a PD. Even as teachers, there are times we have to prepare for a PD. There's things that we want to bring to PD to present or share with our colleagues. And so we just ask that we not forget about our middle school colleagues. Grading time, report card writing time is very difficult for us. It takes a huge effort on our part to make sure that we're preparing reports to parents that are meaningful and help us do our best for their child, for their children. So in the years ahead, we just ask that we are included in conversations about when those PD days happen so that we avoid those types of what we feel is a conflict for our middle school colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Discussion from the
I mean,
board?
based on that comment, I mean, it looks like we have the same situation in this upcoming calendar, so I don't know if that's something to.
Yeah, and I think it was the
Review.
same situation last year and we've had it in prior years too. So it is something that it adjusted, but you have to put in 180. It's just, where do you put them? So again, it is handled in other districts, you can have a day off after a quarter. And you can have a day off after a trimester, but that day has to be worked somewhere. So many districts go in June.
I thought he was asking to move the PD day.
Well, then we could have a school day. So that could be an option too, absolutely. So we could have a PD day on a different week. And then that would be a school day.
But I think the way this PD day falls is on Indigenous peoples.
Same as this year and as last
Yeah.
year and
In terms
in
of
prior
families.
years.
And high schools have it.
Yes,
We
the
have
high
school
school
days.
does too.
So then
Correct.
you could have say PD day.
No,
I'm sorry, not
it would be a school day
school day.
unless we work it it's still.
But then we would not be aligned with the high school and we would have students not coming.
So
to
the
PD
high
day.
school has a day off,
Right.
but
Oh, it's not a
they
PD
have
day.
professional development day 3 days in August. We have 2 days in August. So their teachers come back a full day earlier. So that's something that we could discuss because it doesn't change anything for students. It changes, which we actually did discuss last year, but that wasn't an interest to discuss that much.
So then at what day would the teachers, if you add a day? what day
It would be
they have to
August.
come back?
August.
Either in August or in June. So
Does that affect-
high school comes in August. They do 3 days in August. Before school starts, professional development.
Week prior.
So right here.
But
So-
there's a benefit of having a PD day kind of like a couple of months into the school year.
Sir, would you like to,
Yeah, I think it's important to add that it happens in March again. So in March, we have another PD day. It will happen again this year in March.
but it did last year.
It did last year as well and the year prior. So both PD days are in alignment with the end of the quarter at OIS, the Monday
And
following.
the high school.
Yeah, which matches the high school day off from school as well. So if we were going to move those PD days, we'd have to find another place in the year to fit them. There's a great benefit to having PD spread out throughout the year. I mean, there's pros and cons to all the choices, really.
For the high school, it's not a PD day, it's just a day off.
For this October, and I believe last year, their Indigenous Peoples' Day is a day off for students and staff, which aligns for our families, which is the most important. With regards to attendance for us, right? And ADA.
I'm looking at their 25,
you.
26. I don't have this one.
The 5th, right
So they
here,
come back on the 5th.
the 5th if I can remember correctly, I'm sorry, I don't have them.
For this school year, for 25, 26, their March day is it is a PD day.
Correct.
Same. Right, and their October date though is a non-school day.
But they start on the
They
5th.
started, yes.
So that is a possibility for us to match that.
We do
have to.
But we don't have to do that today.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough information to make that adjustment right now. If that's something that comes forward to us later after discussing with teachers, I think one takeaway, it's just mindful of preparation teachers might need to do for PD day, or, how that PD day is rolled out, taking into account that whatever grading and quarter business needs to be taken care of. I think it's really important that we align days off with the high school calendar. And I don't, we have enough information to move the PD day tonight.
I would agree. However, so next steps, this is up for action, right? So, but we need to bring back that other information for us to completely decide, or do you?
No, so I think
we
now-
go
I think
this
that we can-
now, and then we can have another at our next meeting perhaps, or
So what-
whenever Sarah could bring back more information.
Yeah, you can take an action and then we can work with the union if we want to move the professional development
I think it
itself,
would
but
be
the
helpful.
non-instructional time
Right.
would be the
Yeah.
non-instructional time.
Right, that's helpful.
That's what drives drives the needs of the community,
Mhm.
knowing when are the school days for students.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would recommend that we approve this as is right now.
You would or would not?
I would approve it with the understanding that staff may come back with a different recommendation for
It's up to
other
them.
time in the future.
More public comment.
I think I said bye.
Any additional commentary, Eve, or anyone else? Okay. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am aware that this happened before, and I know there are times when we give input, so I wanted to acknowledge that. There are times when things come to our executive board. This year it did, and so we have to be responsive and just let you know what our members are saying. This was something that we had not heard in years past, but it came up this year. So we just wanted to do our due diligence and make sure you're aware that we are representing all of our members, including our middle school colleagues. So that's why. But it has been talked about, but we haven't heard concern about it in the past, but it came up this year.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion or public comment, Eve, do you have any? No? Nothing online?
No.
Okay. This is up for action, and so we need a motion to approve the 26-27 instructional calendar.
This is Hillary. I move that the board approve the 26-27 instructional calendar.
This is Katie, I second. Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantivant?
Aye.
Trustee Wiener?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun? Aye. President Collins-Coleman? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. So we'll just look forward to more information for your date. Okay, is there a need for a break or anything? No. Okay, moving forward, item 7A, these are discussion items. 25-26 OUSD assessment report. Sarah.
All right, I'm gonna come off of the projection just for a second so that I can project the right slides. That's okay. But Sarah, you can start if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it might not be best for me to take over with Eve up there, the complication of it a little bit. So just you presenting is great. I'm grateful for that. Thank you. So excited to present to you all on our data because it says a lot of great things about what's happening around teaching and learning in Orinda. We're going to talk a little bit about our formative assessment data, which, as you know, has a change this year with our DIBELS data available K-5, which previously we only had for kinder and first grade. in a different form of DIBELS. And now, so we have the Amplified DIBELS M class available K through 5, and also STAR math data, which never before had we had consistent beginning of the year data for STAR math in grades 1 through 5. So I'll walk you through that as soon as we get it up there. And then some really exciting, thank you. Awesome, great.
Can I just check in? Eve, are you seeing the presentation? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sorry.
All right, so that's kind of just walking through our agenda right there. We're going to talk about the assessment types. We'll look at our screening data and what it says about where our students at our beginning of the year. We're going to do an overview of what state tests do we take, and then look at that very many charts, I think, that are exciting this time because we have multiple years of data post-COVID. So I think there's some interesting insights for us to make from the data now that it is spring of 2025 data compared to years prior when we only had 2 or 3 years worth of data. And then we'll talk about observations and next steps. All right, so going on to slide 3, it is just really going over what are the 2 types of data we really value in our system for measuring the abilities of our students and the quality of teaching and learning in the district. And so we've got our universal screeners on the left-hand side. That's a formative test that happens 3 times a year. And that is going to identify students who need extra support. So that for us is DIBELS and STAR K5. Actually STAR K8 as well. Our middle school math students also take STAR. And then for literacy in the middle school, we have an assessment as well that gives teachers valuable information about reading levels, but it's not technically called labeled a screener for reasons I'll get into on the next slide. And then our state testing is summative. That tells us how kids did at the end of the year, right? It's not, we still try to respond intentionally to our state testing data, but it's not as formative as our screener data in the process. And that is tests such as CASP and LPAC. So let's just shift to talking about our formative assessment data, those universal screeners. One thing I just want to point out is that this universal screener data is going to tell us who is at risk of being behind grade level at the end of the school year in that subject area based on grade level standards. It's valid, scientifically based measures that have been well vetted and normed most likely nationally. And our 2 screeners do that. They are nationally normed tests that are highly rated and evidence-based. They are quick and they are efficient, and that's really key because every student needs to be screened. And when you're screening every single student as a classroom teacher, we've got to be able to do it quick and efficiently to make the best use of our time. And then it has to link to instructional priorities. Once we know which students are behind, we need to know what are we going to do about it, and that's where the instruction piece comes in. All right, so if we go to the next slides, we'll see here the MTSS framework. I think it's always important to share this framework of the multi-tiered system of support because if you look at the bottom, you'll see our DIBELS, STAR, and really when it comes to social emotional data, our California Healthy Kids Survey data, that informs us as how are kids doing social emotionally as sort of like a litmus test, and so too does that DIBELS and STAR math data. It's the foundation of our multi-tiered system support. From there, we respond to students based on the tiers, knowing all students get that good, solid tier 1 core instruction. And then some students are going to need something more, and that's tier 2. And then even less students, a few are going to need something even more, and that's that tier 3 instruction. And then I never miss a chance to say, let's be very careful about equating tier 3 with special education because none of these tiers actually represent special education. You could have a special education in any one of these tiers, and we have general education students in any of the tiers. And students might actually be receiving support in multiple tiers at the same time. And then the very next slide is my favorite metaphor for screening. And I like it because it speaks to it really being a true safety net. Why do we have to screen all kids? Why not just the ones who we know are behind? Why do we screen all kids mid-year, for example? And we will screen all kids beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year. And that's because it is truly meant to be as tightly woven a safety net as possible to be sure that no kids are falling through the cracks and really have a systematic approach to all kids 3 times a year to be sure we're catching every possible kid who could be behind. And then jumping forward, we get to see our data in comparison to national DIBELS data, which I think is one of the small perks of having a nationally normed test. But we'll see here that compared to our national data, the red and the yellow represent students who are labeled as at risk. So the red is far below, the yellow is below, and you'll see nationally 49% of students in grades K through 5 are at risk at the beginning of the year. Compared to Orinda, where just 22% of our students are at risk. But even when we say 22% of our students are at risk, that means something that maybe not as many nationally, but it still have to do something very strategic about that 22%. And that's where the MTSS framework comes in, because if we're thinking about the pyramid and the percentage of students that should be in each of those tiers of the pyramid, core instruction tier 1 should be serving 80% of our kids well. So anytime that our number is greater than 20% of kids at risk, we know we have to address something in tier 1. But this is the beginning of the year data. So already we've sent our letters out to home to families as well, right? Indicating to families where your child is at in reading. And already our system is responding to those kids. But it's not a trigger point for us right now to be worried, because we know we've got good tiers 2 and tier 3 in support of supporting these kids. And we'll be monitoring this data mid-year when we see how many students improve mid-year. And then if we go to the next slide, you'll see it broken down by grade. So the percent at risk of kinder at the top with 39%. And then you see it actually is still kind of high at grade 1 with 23% of grade 1 students at risk. And then it lessens and kind of stabilizes towards the upper grades, which we expect to see. The number is usually so great at kindergarten at the beginning of the year because there are so many diverse abilities at the beginning of the year. You have kindergartners who might come in knowing no letters or no sounds, and that's actually okay because we're going to learn those letters and sounds in kindergarten. You might have kids knowing how to read. So in order to design a test to accurately measure kindergartners, it's just not technically as accurate because the abilities are so wide and varied in kindergarten. Where those abilities we tend to see much more homogeneous as students age in the grade levels. We know with pretty much a lot of precision what a beginning of the year first grader or second grader or third grader needs to know. But kindergartners come up with just various abilities. That's why we just tend to see more kindergartners at risk at the beginning of the year because the test is a little less accurate. So we don't overreact to that beginning of the year kindergarten data. We're going to monitor it closely middle of the year. We expect those numbers to go down. And if last year is any indication, we expect them to go down dramatically by end of year. Well, we'll have much, much fewer students at risk at the end of the year in kindergarten.
Yes, but why was there a little jump in the third grade?
Yeah, that's so third grade, 18 to 21. Yeah. Just sometimes it could be by cohort. It's just various factors that are not really that we don't get to glean from this data. Yeah, it's not at the beginning of the year. We're not. If I see a number like 21 in the middle of the year, then that's something we need to go in and talk to our third grade teams about and strategize around. Yeah. Okay.
Do we also expect an expansion of TK to bring more consistency into our kindergarten numbers? I mean, I think that not all kids will go to TK, but going forward that did in the past. So
yeah, great point, Eve, because we've had some really good alignment from our TK team around standards. TK actually just got brand new. They don't call them standards for TK, they call them foundations, but essentially they work the same. Stephanie's shaking her head. She knows them very well from her role as well. But in TK, we've got the entire TK team has aligned and just selected their essentials as well. So they're 1 year behind all the other grade levels. So yes, Eve, we do expect as the TK team is more aligned in their standards, they know exactly how many letter sound, for example, is developmentally appropriate. They have a scope and sequence to their reading instruction and their math instruction as well that's aligned to the standards. So I would expect that. Okay, we shift to our math screening data. So we'll see, this is the STAR math test, which is a completely different platform from Dibbles. And it's a Renaissance product. It lives in Eliminate. And it is, you'll see again, pretty similar in a way in kinder being around 39-40% here. And then it goes down to 24% in 5th grade. So we'll be looking for those numbers to improve mid-year and end of year. In the past, we haven't had a practice of assessing all kids in math 3 times a year. And so this year we will. Last year, it was new for teachers to do the math test 3 times a year. We had pretty much probably, I would say 95% fidelity with it at the end of last year. It did allow us to look at data with our administrative team in June of last year to see how many students grew in math. And it was the first time we've been able to see that data as far as I knew in the last few years. And so we'll be looking forward to seeing that data again now, the growth that will come from the math data middle of year and end of year.
Do you attribute the higher grade 1 number to the similar reason for kindergarten? That one's kind of, grade 1, you've already been in school quite a while, so that one jumped out to me. I do know they're developmentally very, very, very different still. Is that what you would account it to, or just?
Yeah, I think 3rd grade too, this expectation, sometimes the expectations have a jump in the standards where we're really adding on significantly more complex skills at a particular grade, which could cause the jump as well.
Would you say that's for 5th grade too? Like between 20, I guess fifth grade is 28 and then jumps down to 18 by 6th grade.
Yeah. I wish for this one we had a national norms for us to compare to. And that's bringing up a good point is I can include that data next time. It's always good to see the data in comparison to other, that sometimes at grade level across the board, right? And how COVID may have affected it. It's just so many dynamic factors, cohort being like just the cohort dynamics, effects of certain, societal factors such as the pandemic. Sometimes the standards themselves become more complex at that grade level. But yeah, I think, the most important thing at this stage is to identify, as teachers have done, who are my kids that the screener is telling me is at risk. I do more diagnostics with those kids. I monitor them closely with my basic, unit common formative assessments in that instruction in order to respond.
Are they using the data holistically as well, though? So for math, I'm guessing from the screener, there's some pretty specific strand data is like.
Yeah, they do get data by strand. And we can actually look at some of the standards that are the least, students are the least successful in as well. Yeah, and drill down into that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. And also just in comparison to tax data, since they'll deep dive in the data, but do those strands match up in terms of weaknesses that you might see on a screener versus the summative assessment? I think math's an easier one to dissect that in personally, because a lot of that data comes out of these assessments, but that kind of crossed my mind. Like, are there areas where, we can be a little better about teaching a particular topic, or is it a jump in 3rd grade that seems to be kids are struggling with? And there seems to be some more deeper analysis around math, potentially. Maybe there are no trends, but I think there probably are.
Yeah, I think as far as informing our SBAC at the end of the year, these scores are meant to be indicators tied. That's a part of their evidence, like the vetting that the assessment goes through is how closely are you aligned to SBAC? And so these would be indicators that these are children who are likely to not score proficient on CASP at the end of the year unless we were to do something about it. And there's usually a pretty high correlation. At the end of the year, I've looked at some really interesting correlation data. You want to see less correlation, right? That means your system responded well. So we can definitely bring that back to at some point if you're interested in that.
Or follow up in the morning.
Yeah,
an update.
And then Sarah, is this 2023-24 data or are we looking at 24?
We're looking at fall 25 data. I'm sorry, that's a mistake on the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an old thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. It needs to be erased. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so we're going to shift now into our overview of state assessments. And just a reminder that includes the Smarter Balance assessment in math and ELA, and then the California Alternate Assessment that some of our students with disabilities take, and then the CAST or the California Science Test as well, taken in 5th and 8th grades. And I think the very next slide actually talks about, now I'm getting ready to change this slide up now that we're so far past the pandemic, but this is a good reminder for us that in 2019, it was that last testing year that was a regular year, dare I say, prior to the pandemic. And then we don't have data for years 20 and 2021. Those springs, we were not testing. 2020 spring, that was the time we left school in about March, right? And so kids missed March through June in 2020. And then that 2021 year was a hybrid year. The state has some data around that year, but most districts actually opted out of the state test of that year and did an alternative. So we don't have data from those years. So now we have 4 years of data post-COVID, which I think is really fun to look at, to see how I think a lot of us across the world really have been wondering, well, how does COVID affect kids? What has been the impact? And I think maybe we can actually kind of tell a little bit in our data, at least this year. Okay, so if we go next, it's kind of a repeat of what I already shared, but just a reminder, ELA is taken in grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Math is the same thing. And then interim assessments are another really important component. Our teachers do a great job of administering interims. We have a schedule. They do anywhere from 3 to 4 interims in each of the subject areas. The data shows the higher engagement there is in interims for students, the higher the outcomes are on CAS. So we know it's beneficial, and it really is helpful to teaching. In fact, we're really trying to encourage it in our PLCs to even use interims as a piece of their common formative assessments, because we know our interim tests, which are basically just practice tests that we all have access to. You can go online, you can download the practice materials, you can have students log on and take those practice tests if you prefer, or you can hand deliver them in class in a different type of setting. And you just know you're mimicking the rigor and expectations of that grade level for those students in that subject area, which is invaluable in preparing students for the test. But at the same time, we're preparing kids for lots of other things too, not just for the test. And so a lot of good teaching practices to embed that within their regular curriculum. So it's not just a test prep right before test, but we're using those interims intermittently throughout the year, really. And that schedule teachers follow, we follow really coming up in a month or two now. Kevin and I will reach out to teachers to work on that interim schedule of when they're administering those. Okay, so what's next? Thank you, Aida. Our participation rate is critically important. It's not a problem in Orinda at all. As you can say, we're at 99 or above in both categories. But ultimately, if we weren't to meet that threshold, then there are penalties. So we do want to be conscientious about meeting that 95% threshold.
I think another reason that that's really important is that when we're looking at our high scores, it really is all of our students. It's really representative versus, we do know of some districts that have very high scores, and it is not such a high participation. So I appreciate that that's really representative of all of our students. It is really important, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk first about ELA. Those will be our green slides. Just trying to find a way to organize this because it's so much data. So color coding is sometimes my favorite thing. So our CAS ELA data, this is a quick overview of year by year. We can see that we are growing last year to this year by 1%, which is pretty great. We're maintaining that 80% benchmark overall across grades 3 through 8, which is just outstanding. I really can't highlight that enough of how high these scores are and what they say about the teaching and learning happening in Orinda. They are incredibly high. They're incredibly high when you compare them even to other like districts with same demographics and affluence and all those factors, incredibly high scores. Now we'll look at 5-year trends. So our elementary 5-year trend, you see increases in grades 3 and grade 5. A slight decrease in grade 4. So I looked into that a little bit and found out that this cohort of grade 4 students also experienced a slight decrease in 3rd grade numbers last year compared to the previous year's 3rd graders. So just interesting to note because I thought, that's one of all of our cohorts were growing except for that slight decrease. But again, even at 84, our students are demonstrating a really strong level of understanding in ELA. All right, shall we go to the next one? Okay, and so here is our middle school trends, grades 6, 7, and 8. Again, 6 and 7 experience increases grade 6 at 90%. It's pretty incredible. And then grade 8, a slight decrease. Again, they also experienced a slight decrease last year in grade 7 when compared to the previous year's cohort. But we need to keep in mind that overall scores are just meeting that 80% threshold and beyond. We're not even really worried about it. Okay.
I don't know which way to go, backwards, sorry.
Okay, let's look at our 10-year grade level trends. I think this one is kind of cool if you kind of like charts. So if you look at the left-hand side, we see grades 3 through 5 for 10 years. And so if you look at 2018 and 2019, you'll see compared to 2025, we are just right about there in about every single grade level. So you had, prior to COVID, 5th grade was at 92%. Now, in 2025, they're at 92%, and they have experienced a great increase from the immediate first testing date post-pandemic was 2022. So from 86 to 92, we can confidently say they've been growing strongly and back to pre-pandemic levels. Then if we look at grade 3, we were at 90% pre-pandemic and now at 87%. Again, steadily growing, a little fluctuation there, but steadily growing. And then grade 5, I said that opposite, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's okay. And so now we'll do grade 4, and we'll see grade 4 was at 88, and now they're at 84. But if you were to average that, it's about, and I may have averaged it, may not. So performance remains consistently strong and stable, with most grades between 85 and 92, stellar. Grade 5 shows the highest and most consistent achievement. They are maintaining 90% in average over recent years. And there's been a slight dip in 2022, but all grades have rebounded quickly, returning to or exceeding pre-pandemic levels. So that's the left side, elementary. If you look at the right side, which I find interesting, so post-pandemic, our students in the lower grades slid down, but in middle school, they actually went up. And then they've experienced a little bit of volatility, but continue to grow overall, except for that 8th grade cohort, which was 85% pre-pandemic, is now 84. We say overall, it's not that bad at all. You could probably pretty much say they're back to pre-pandemic levels, but that cohort seems to be one of our most greatly affected cohorts by the pandemic. And we look at the scores overall and do some analysis. So grade 6 shows notable improvement by 2025, rising to 90%, its strongest performance in the entire decade. And then grades 7 and 8 have stabilized post-pandemic, but remain slightly below pre-pandemic highs. And then the data indicates strong system-wide recovery in ELA and steady progress, which is great. All right, let's talk about our cohorts. So we're going to look at groups of students by grade and track their growth over time in the district to say, are they growing over time, which is what we'd want to see, them steadily increasing or maintaining proficiency. With proficiency levels so high, you can imagine there's not a room for a huge amount of growth. We want to see them maintain or grow at least slightly. So here is our class of 2025. I like to add this little blue part in the bottom that shows that these students were 3rd graders in 2020, and they were 4th graders in that odd, funky hybrid year. They probably they remain strong and on track, but they're not as high as some of our other cohorts. And we'll look at the cohort comparison data soon to look at how the pandemic may have affected them in comparison. If we go to the next chart, it shows the blue line is the 2025 cohort. And the gold line is the state cohort performance. I found this to be so intriguing because you can see that even in this little tiny percentage of the statewide data of last year's eighth graders, for the close to 1,000 districts, one district is kind of mimicking, but at a much higher level, the state trend from year to year. I mean, we just are significantly achieving 35 to 40 points higher than the state though. So really a special place to learn. And then if we go to the next state, we'll do this again. We see a drop in 5th to 6th grade, which is common statewide, but the 7th grade class performed 1 point above their pre-pandemic peers in ELA. These kiddos were 2nd graders. And I have one of these students and I've wondered for a long time, like, what does this affect when she missed an entire 3rd grade in 2021 in that awkward hybrid / at-home learning. And this is one of our greatest affected cohorts as well. You'll see those statewide, again, we're 35 to 40 points above the state trend for the same cohort. But dips occurring, slight increase 22 to 23, state dipped as well, 24 and increased, and we kind of see the same. I only left off my little number right there at the top right, sorry. But you see the same trend. And then if we go to the next cohort, this is our class of 2027. They are 7th graders now. And this is the first class we have all grades of their data, right? Because they started testing in 3rd grade. They were 1st graders in the spring of 2020, and they were 2nd graders in 2021. And again, we see strong growth and significant gains compared to their pre-pandemic 6th grade peers. And then if we go to the next chart, we see, again, a mimicking, for the most part, of state growth, but 40 to 45 points higher than the state trend. And I think we have one more cohort, our class of 28 students. They have been growing steady since grade 3. So they are now 6th graders, but look at that growth, grades 3, 4, and 5. That's really strong. And these kiddos were kindergartners and then 1st graders. So if you were, this was also one of those critical groups, you think they're doing 1st grade, like what is like a critical time. I know Mr. Shannon would agree with me, a critical time for learning for kiddos. And yet the data is promising. They are one of the least affected cohorts. So it actually shows us that students who were older, if you were in the 3rd or 4th or 5th grade in the pandemic, you were more greatly affected than if you were in kinder, 1st or 2nd. And we see that in math as well.
Yay, K1 teacher.
And so these kiddos, again, look at them. Look at our little microcosm here in Orinda mimicking the statewide trend. So, but again, 40 points. This is over 40 points above. Okay, and so now we see these trends, growth by cohort. Let me get here, make sure I'm not missing any important points. But if you see here, if you start with our oldest kids, class of 2024 in blue, to our youngest kids are the class of 2028 in purple. You can see I actually put their pandemic age just right next to their class. So we can see them, how they grow. And we can see that our oldest kids, the class of 2024, probably, I mean, it's pretty high, 88, 80, 88, 87. Class of 25, struggled a little bit more. Class of 26 in yellow, we see more volatility there, but finishing strong right there in 2025. In the class of 27, orange, you can see how high they are. And then the class of in purple as well, finishing really high this year. So overall, we can see that our early intervention and foundational literacy efforts have been really effective post-pandemic. We have slower growth for the older classes, but still gains. Like, I don't want to undermine the gains that that group has made, but the younger cohorts do show stronger recovery and higher achievement post-pandemic. And I think I kind of cover this in the very next slide, which is a summary of what our grade level and cohort data shows, which is that our grade level, think about their grade level trends really as a how did this year's group of, third graders do compared to last year's group of third graders. And that data shows strong overall recovery. Each grade, especially third through fifth, has returned to high performance. And for everybody is really at or above pre-pandemic levels. And then our second piece of data we looked at, which is our cohort trends, how do the same group of students perform over time? That shows that students who were in upper elementary during the pandemic had the greatest lasting impact with slower rebound compared to the younger kiddos, which I guess is to be expected if you think about it. Less time to recover. Our younger kids have had more time in our system, more time to recover. And then together, the data show that while system-wide literacy outcomes have stabilized, pandemic effects were most pronounced for those older cohorts. All right, so that is our ELA data.
Almost.
Oh, I lied. Almost, thank you. Let's look at our subgroup data. Okay, so how do particular subgroups perform over time? Here is our race and ethnicity data. You can see that the overall percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards in ELA remains relatively stable. We have the most volatility probably with our African American cohort, although we've seen some strong recovery since the 2017 year. But we do need to note that achievement gaps persist, especially for our African American Latino students. And also our three actually lowest performing groups, if you take the all student group, which is the green, there are three groups that for the last, let's say 4 years or so have been consistently under the average, and that would be our white students, our Hispanic students, and our African American students. So some intentional strategizing for some of our smaller subgroups and how we can be better serving them in our multi-tiered system support is needed. If we go to the next group, we'll see our students with IEPs and our English learners. We have a gap in our English learner data there in green, just noted because of the number of English learners in a particular year who may or may not take the test that we don't get data for them. But all students is above in gold. And then we see some steady growth for students with IEP. It looks like we're trending downward, but it's really important to point out that our average pre-pandemic was 56 and our average post-pandemic is 59. So we're still consistently in a very high range. And that's actually when you compare our ELA scores with our students with IEPs compared to other surrounding districts that are very similar, we're on average about 10 points higher. So our teachers and our system is doing a good job of supporting those students, at least in comparison to how those students may be being served other places, but we still know there's room for improvement. And I mean, I think that's probably on any questions on those two subgroups. The next subgroup is gender in ELA. And so we'll see here that we do have a consistent achievement gap with boys compared to girls being gold and boys being green. But both groups are back to pre-pandemic levels. If you look at those levels, in fact, both groups are back to above pre-pandemic levels in ELA when looked at in this chart. And the gender gap has reduced, but still persists. It used to be 10 points, and now we're at about 5 points. That's all ELA data.
Now you can move to math.
Now we go to math. All right, math, here we come. All right, so let's look at the blue slides. All right, again, you're gonna see this trend where we've got more than 80% of our students meeting standards. That's exceptional, especially in math, where actually it's usually scores are generally lower in math compared to ELA. And so still we maintain a high, very high standard for students year after year. If we go to the next chart, we'll see that 10-year subject trend. On this one, I added in the ELA just so we can see a comparison. So ELA is in green, math is in blue. And we can see pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. And it's interesting, we can actually see that probably math has been more greatly affected than ELA. And that, I think, in discussing this and probably considering why, a big piece of that is because perhaps ELA is a subject that we can support at home fairly easily through reading and literature and all of the texts kids are exposed to in and out of the classroom. And math is not necessarily similar at home, right? Some of it, I don't know about you, but I'm probably not doing as many math worksheets at home as I am reading with my kiddo, or for the reading part. And so I think that might be a reason for that difference. That's okay. All right, so let's go to grades 3, 4, and 5. We see those 5-year trends, really great gains. Grade 4, again, we saw this dip right with math as well. But overall, really strong, highest for grade 5 since 2017. Pretty phenomenal. And then if we go to the middle school years, we see grade 6, 7, 8, a dip in 8th grade. But again, I feel like that could be more cohort related. But again, yeah, it's weird. In 8th grade there, we are below the 80% threshold. So that's something we need to look at OIS and just be strategic about what standards our students maybe not performing as high at. What's causing that dip, 84 to 73. We can attribute sometimes things to the cohort, but at the same time, we need to really take a mirror and look and see, like, is there something that we could be doing different about, in particular, those 8th grade math standards. Okay. And then the next one is, again, that same chart comparing elementary to middle school for each of the grade levels. Pre and post pandemic. We see everybody decline from that 2019 to below in elementary, largest dips, but they've had steady recovery. And then in grade 6, 7, 8, we see everybody except for grade 6, which somehow miraculously increased post pandemic from, as that says, 75 to an 83 up there. But you see the other cohorts drop and then some volatility there. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's also important to look at cohort data as well as the grade level data, right? Because this data is not measuring student groups in comparison to each other. It's actually data in different students compared to each other. But nonetheless, shows some room for growth in 8th grade. And then, oh, that's okay. I can move faster.
No, I just can't press button backwards.
I appreciate it. All right, so let's talk about our cohort data. Again, we'll start with the class of 2025. And we'll see a increase from grade 5 to grade 6, but then sort of a steady decline, grade 7, grade 8. Again, these were 3rd and 4th graders in the pandemic. They're reflecting a slow recovery trajectory post-pandemic. But let's look at their scores compared to the state scores and see if the trends align. This is interesting because we actually see really a maintenance of the state score between 32 to 34, while ours have kind of declined a few points. So that's pause for thought for that 8th grade. Again, coming up as an area of focus. And then if we go to the next one, this group of kiddos was 2nd and 3rd grade in the pandemic, and we'll see them pretty much maintaining overall. 5th to 6th grade, slight dip, but overall scores are high. And then their cohort data shows, in comparison to the state, a pretty similar, well, it's actually opposite when I look at it. But the state average is in the 30s, while ours is 40 points higher. So great work overall when it comes to those numbers. I mean, 82% of our 7th graders are proficient, meeting or exceeding. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. And then if we go to the 27 cohort, these are those 1st and 2nd graders in the pandemic. And we'll see that they have sort of declined a bit, but strong results still. When you look at these for the previous cohorts, we didn't have as much elementary data, right? And so you generally do see these dips elementary to middle, and they're still higher though. They're still higher in that 80, above 80% region in grade 6. And then let's look at them compared to the state. Interesting, similar dips, right? 22, 23, 24. And then we've maintained and the state increased by 2%, but overall 40 percentage points above the state. And then if we go to our last, is this our last one? Class of 2028, those kinders and first graders, look at their numbers, really, really high. So they continue to perform at really high levels and just outstanding levels of learning, really. If we go to the next slide, we'll see how high above we are. We are more, this is probably our highest difference. We're 45 points above each year in similar trends though, as far as 23 to 24. And then the last one here on the cohorts is the comparison. And this is the one where you can see really how that purple cohort, that class of 2028, which was the for kinder first graders, look at how high they are in comparison to those third, fourth, and fourth, fifth graders, the class of 25 and the class of 24 in green and blue. You can see how being younger during the pandemic probably was maybe a benefit as opposed to a hindrance. So that's that one. And then here's our summary of that. Grade level data shows strong recovery. Current students across all grades are approaching pre-pandemic levels, but are still a few points behind in the grade level data. But our cohort data shows what I've been repeating myself about is that those upper elementary classes 24 and class of 25 experience the greatest lasting impact, the slower rebound. But together, the data indicate that while overall math outcomes have stabilized, the pandemic had a greater impact on students who were older at the time and lesser effect on those. And I should have added to that probably, it's just really strong data. Overall, our students are really high performing. Okay, looking at math subgroups, we'll see similar trends in comparison to ELA. So if the all students is our green, you can see there are 3 groups that are below the average, that gray-white student subgroup, the orange Hispanic, and the African American. So while the system shows post-pandemic stabilization, the gap between the highest and lowest performing groups exceeds 40 points. So that is something we need to work intentionally about. We need to identify those students. We need to talk with those teachers. We need to figure out a plan of action.
Question, it's quite interesting in of the charts. 24 was the year of decline for girls, boys, not only this by student group, but in some of the cohorts. Is there something that happened in 24?
That's a great question. I don't know, but let me look into that.
And then it just shoots right up. It increases very strong in 25, but just wondering what that pain point is.
Yeah. Post-pandemic vacations.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I think when you see a dip, you do see it in 2024 pandemic.
Yeah, and it was on the ELA one for boys and girls, where girls dipped in 24 as well.
Yeah, let me look into that a little bit in comparison to county and state trends as well. And I can share that in a board update.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if we go to the next one, our subgroups for English learners and IEPs. And here we go. Again, we have a persistent achievement gap, but some steady growth overall. ELA performance is, that's, but basically we see that all students in green there, we've got a 33-point gap between both our groups, but an average post-pandemic, which is about on par with the average pre-pandemic. Achievement gaps that we need to address. And then if we go to the next slide, We'll see math by gender, and here we see the achievement gap swapped with our boys in green and our girls in gold, and there's less of an achievement gap though here. So while the ELA achievement gap was 5 points currently, this is only 3 and has been less than 5 points since 2023. Both groups are rebounding though, which is positive. And then if we go to our next slide, let's talk about quickly, but our California alternative assessments, we do have some students who take this assessment, but we have fewer than 11 students who take it. And whenever we have that few students, to protect student privacy, we don't share the data. It's not available. All right, should I pause there? Do you have questions, or the next section is CAS?
Sorry, going back to the race and ethnicity, how did you, is that something that the state does? I noticed Filipino was called out. Why? I'm just curious, trying to think, like in the comparison to the state trend, like why was that particular race called out versus?
The state mandate.
It's just a state. Yeah. Yeah, it's the way it's just documented in our SMS.
Yeah, but no, it's a state
Mandated by the state.
requirement. It's one of the requirements in how race ethnicity is Asian American or Filipino is separate.
Okay, and then we go to CAST. This is our science data. And so 2019 was the first year. We go to the next slide. Actually, next slide 58. 2019 was the first year of CAST, and then it was canceled in 2020 and 2021. And then we've had 4 years of CAST data since. And we'll go to the next slide and see the breakdown of the data. So this is for students in grades 5 and 8. We see since 2019 pre-pandemic, we haven't quite achieved pre-pandemic levels, but we've been hovering around that like 73% average range. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll see the gender difference. And oh no, I'm sorry, this is not gender. This is grades 5 and 8. And so this is, we wanted to break it apart because it's important. I think it's give a test just given in 1 year. The grade 5 test assesses the elementary years of science concepts, and then grade 8 assesses the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade years of concepts. And we can see that that gold line for grade 5 is trending upward, while the blue or purple line for OAS is 8th graders is trending downward. So that's something that we're gonna want to, again, be strategic about. One, we know that there is an achievement difference that happens from elementary to middle, right? As concepts become more complex and the rigor of science becomes much higher. But at the same time, this is something that is concerning that we'd want to talk with OIS about and meet with their science department and administration about to strategize around.
And then if we go, do you know if the same kind of test in 2019 was given in 2025? Because like 2019 and 2022, they're at the same.
Yeah,
You know,
and then we see this,
and all of a sudden it's split. So did the test change, you know? Or
I think there were some changes, but not so dramatically. But there were some adjustments to the assessment.
Okay.
But I mean, it's the same standards that were occurring on the 3 years of science, but there have been adjustments to the science test made over the last few years. I think the test was longer in 2022. Is that a real?
yeah, they shortened it.
Yeah.
You would think that would lead to improvements if it's
Yeah.
shorter, right?
Okay, is this our gender? Or let's go to our gender one. I think it's also important to analyze this. When we think about traditional societal achievement gaps, we want to look at our data in that way when it comes to boys and girls in science. And so we'll see that both groups were affected post-pandemic. But while it seemed like last year the gender gap was closing, it's now has increased to not as great as it was in 2023, but just 1 point off. So something we want to be aware of. But when I looked into this, I thought, well, if we really want to be intentional about this, I think we need to know, because we're just talking about 2 grade levels, which grade level should we be focusing on? Is it in both grade levels, the gender gap, or one or the other? So if we can go to the next slide, we'll see, I did my best. The girls are in those gold colors and the boys are in the green. The lighter color is the younger grade and the darker is the older grade. So we can see that, yeah, 5th grade girls are just doing great. And that is in contrast to 8th grade girls that are only 59% meeting or exceeding, compared to 8th grade boys that are 71% meeting or exceeding.
But this is also the same cohort that's also not doing as well for ELA and for math.
That is true.
And so many things happen in middle school. It's confident, you don't speak up as much in terms of the gender dynamics.
However, our girls in ELA or in math are outperforming the boys.
In ELA, not in math.
Excuse me, in ELA, in 8th grade.
But I feel like the science data in particular should be shared with the high school. I mean, like for the 8th grade, just to see this trend. It's hard because those students are already now 1 quarter into the high school, but just to have an understanding of where these kids were testing.
Yeah, be curious to collaborate with them and see how they're doing.
Yeah,
for the first order of grades.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Okay.
Hear anything from parents of those first year high school students?
We hear stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of things that you ask
Just-
specifically?
Just wondering and how they're adjusting, if there's just wondering around that, because you see that dramatic shift.
Yeah, I think we've had some meetings with them, and I think adequately preparing our students for OIS or for Miramonte or high school, whatever high school they go on to, is important. And it's something that will be possible even through a committee we're already working on, for our homework committee, right, Aida? We have to get student feedback around that, and so that would be something we can talk about as well.
That's
for the
great.
science data.
I mean, just haven't been in high school. As employer, as employee over there, not like, haven't gone through high school. I mean, there's always been a focus on girls in science classes up there. I mean, there's a pretty significant, always has been a lag between girls in sciences and enrollment in the upper levels and in achievements. I can't speak to what that data looks like in the last couple of years, but there's been a concentrated effort of what that looks like. I think the gap has narrowed, but the girls have always outperformed the boys in sort of the literature and the boys, math and the sciences and enrollments.
So it's nationwide too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think my comment was just more in general that math and ELA are high performing even at the 8th grade level, but it's still high performing, but it's a lot more than for
It is
science.
harder to tease out in science. I mean, Sarah kind of addressed that already, but it is 3
Well, it's
years.
6, 7, 8.
It is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's just like it is in high school. You're taking a test in 11th grade, so it's harder to understand where the gaps are. Is it 9th grade math or 10th grade math? This is kind of similar. But with that said, this graph is fascinating and what's going on. We know what our target group is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we even see a decrease for boys as well, right? Elementary to middle, but we just see that drastic decline for 8th grade girls.
So we work with a single plans. You're going to hear single plans for student achievements in November. And start working with them tomorrow, or they're working on their action items and reviewing them. This data is something they should examine at OIS for sure.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I agree. I think it's amazing, wonderful. It's in all of this data. This is concerning, and it's not really just OAS. The elementary level science scores continue to be below the 80%, which you've referenced a lot. And I remember a few years ago, a similar discussion and saying, well, the test just changed. We don't really know exactly what's on the test. But now the test has, now we got a few years of data here and what is it about science curriculum or whatever, and that it's not sticking as well. Because obviously the students are achieving at higher levels in ELA and math, like across the board in all grade levels. And then we see this dip, and it could probably be a lot of things, but I think some analysis of that is, and looking forward to the single school plans to see what's coming up.
And I do wonder too, for like the fifth grade, if could we see it by schools? Like are certain schools doing better
Mhm.
than others?
I can share.
We can share that with you.
I can actually show.
Well, and
all
also
the data
just
with you.
sharing that with our, I mean, assume the site principals.
We already have it, so
that,
we can
to
send
be
it to the
able
board.
to, yeah.
And then how would you compare for OIS? How could we?
Compared to other school sites, other middle schools in the area, because that data is public.
Our neighbors.
Mhm. Which we already have that too, so.
Yeah,
I'll send it off to you.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a whole separate report.
Great.
Okay. If we go to the next one, it wraps us up with our summary slides, and we'll speak to some of the things that we've all been talking to. Overall, ELA performance is stable and strong, and we know those numbers are consistently well above 80%. Math performance shows steady improvement post-pandemic, not quite as high as ELA, but upper grade and middle school cohorts continue to recover more slowly. So we'll just keep an eye on them. And then again, reiterating those younger grades reflecting the impact of aligned literacy instruction and strong early intervention supports, which speaks great to the work we're doing in our multi-tiered system of support when it comes to supporting students with all that good teaching that happens. And then I just can't highlight enough that we consistently exceed that 80% tier 1 benchmark in ELA and math.
You have a question?
Oh,
No, I saw
Oh, no.
that to the
Oh,
show.
okay. Sorry.
no worries. No. Okay. And then where do we need to focus? So let's talk about middle school science. And that, we go to the next slide. Then we do need to focus on, as Aida mentioned, our school site plans. Speak with OAS about making this a priority. I think there's a couple things we can do right away, which is one, we need to revisit science interims. They're a great resource. And I don't know that we've been utilizing them as well as we can.
What is that?
So those are the practice tests, those interim tests. The state publishes them for science as well. Because they aren't directly aligned to the grade level content for the teacher, because they're broad, right? They're covering all the content. Not all teachers find them like super excited about using them, especially in elementary where your fifth grade teachers focus mostly on interims around ELA and math, and then science is like an add-on. But still, our challenge really is in elementary when we look at the data, although we know there's room for growth there. And our eighth grade science teachers can be using those interims in a really productive, helpful way to prepare kids for the test. So that will be one of the things that the strategies we can take. The other thing is I think we do need to review our adopted curriculum in middle school. Right now, our curriculum is mostly teacher developed and align it as our PLC work has been good for this. But yet, even though they're doing, especially in some particular grade levels, really strong PLC work around essentials, unit planning as a team, and common formative assessments that are aligned between all of them and strategizing in all the instruction. At the same time, I think they're lacking a really strong adopted curriculum. Their adopted curriculum is FOSS. They don't find that to be as beneficial as they'd like. So I think we need to do some fact finding there first to figure out what's going on and what could be better, what do we have, could it meet their needs or not? And then I mentioned the PLC work. The PLC work is going to continue to support this as teachers are working together, aligning to our rigorous standards and common planning, that collaborative time to design common formative assessments. And then we've got to do our targeted subgroup support for our students with IEPs, English learners, African-American students, and even some Latino students where growth is lagging behind the district-wide averages. And then we are focused this year on data-driven differentiation, strengthening the use of our formative assessment data, our screening data in order to respond to student needs. And that's a major initiative of our PLC work this year to address some of those gaps. And then I'll speak, I kind of gave the next slide away because I spoke to those things already, but here you see for how professional learning communities play a key part in this. As teachers are meeting together, they're refining their units, they're engaging in inquiry around what works, what doesn't work in regards to standards and instruction. And ultimately, the goal of those PLCs is consistent, rigorous access to curriculum for all students, no matter their teacher or whatever school they're at. And so that work all serves for stronger learning outcomes when it comes to our data. And then our intervention system is a key piece of that. And then also there's a piece around a real shift in the way we think about special education and how we serve them. This is a shift statewide, and it's something that's been going on for, I want to say probably 5 to 10 years, and it's taking a long while to take hold because for many, many years, special education has been siloed into its different category. Those teachers may not even get the same professional development general education teachers get. Students might get placed on a special education track, and then we actually don't serve them in our other intervention systems. And so we're making a system-wide effort to be sure that whether a student has an IEP or their general education does not matter. They get the best of our intervention system to serve them. And so that's a cultural shift because we might work with providers who say, well, I don't serve that group of kids. I only serve this group of kids. And we're really approaching it as all means all. We serve all kids with the same supports, no matter their identification of special education or not. And then our screening work, I think, also is a big key piece of this, right? Because that's so formative. It's great to look back at all the achievements we made with our summative CAST data, but even more important at this time of the year is to look at the beginning of the year data and monitor it middle of the year compared to end of the year to be sure we're responding with those intervention systems. So that's it. Thank you.
And so, Sarah, this is really exceptional, demonstrates why we're such a sought after district. I think that's incredible, and why families, seek out, as you said, this scoping sequence of like all the things and all the support that is provided to the students. So I have a question going back to the DIBELS and the early.
I'll do my
Don't
best.
worry about it. It's okay. It's the Allbirds intervention program.
Yes.
At the lower elementary grades. I've heard some nice things about it and how they call it Allbirds because it's for like early and late birds, and they go after school. And I've heard Allbirds. Yeah, during myself, right?
No, it's Allbirds, yeah.
Yeah, my kids a few weeks ago. And how great that's going. And just wondering, what is the intervention timeline? Is it like at the start of this is October and it flows throughout the rest of the school year with the progress monitoring every quarter? And then
I don't know where that was.
Thank you. That's a beautiful metaphor.
That's as far as I'm sorry.
But and the outcomes are great, and so we'll see that next year when you do the provide the data. Yeah. But can you just talk more about that program and why it's so important?
Yeah, so that's one of the mechanisms that we use in our Tier 2 and Tier 3. A student would be identified through the screening data and classroom formative assessment data. That's a program that our 2 literacy TOSAs run, Erin Miller and Stephanie Sato, and then they have a team of interventionists that are classified for support personnel, but they're trained. Erin and Stephanie train them. And they also have our invaluable TK teachers who work in that Allbird program. So when TK teachers are not delivering instruction either from 8 to 11:30 or 11:30 to 3, the opposite end, they're either in that early or late bird time, providing that intervention. And they are, as you can imagine, super highly qualified. And we know highly qualified staff delivering intervention makes a difference. They will provide intervention for a cycle of about 6 to 8 weeks. And then they pause, they review data, and then they decide. They have about a 2-week break period where they're looking at data and deciding who's who's staying or who's moving on. And so it's meant to be very fluid. There's progress monitoring happening every 2 or 4 weeks, depending on the student's level of intensity.
So it might not follow them throughout the course of the school year,
Right.
depending on how that, that progress report is.
It might not. And that's always a challenge logistically for families and with BASC. So there's all of those things with drop off and pick up, and your child actually doesn't need this program anymore. So we either need to, and those are things we kind of grapple with throughout the year. And Stephanie and Erin do a beautiful job of managing that.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my only question.
Yeah.
Board?
Thank you for putting this all together. And I love how it came together with, okay, this is the data and this is what we plan to do. So just wrapping it up nicely. My only concern, I think, is with the science and what is going to be done. And hopefully there'll be actual next steps implemented in the school year. Like with the practice test, hopefully the 8th graders can actually take some of those this year, and maybe next year, and then we'll see an improvement. It'll be interesting to see, like, if they are able to do some of those things, what their scores will be. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you as well. I mean, I think this is the most comprehensive report I've seen like this in my 9+ years on the board. And I mean, having sat through the COVID era here on the board, and having children who are unfortunately based on this and the poor end of the receiving line, they're now 11th grade into college. But it's really quite something to see it laid out in this way, to have the data presented this way. I actually would be curious to see if the high school puts something similar together, just to see how our students have performed. I know that testing kind of, once you get to high school, it's 11th grade. But just to kind of carry that data forward for this whole cohort of COVID students would be interesting to see. But just thank you I know this is a lot of work to put all this together, so I really appreciate it.
And similarly, this is amazing. Thank you. It's really, really comprehensive. I was taking notes when I was preparing, and pretty much you just said everything that I was thinking of, so I don't have much to add. 2 things that came to mind after talking a little bit more about science and even just gender gaps in general. I don't think that's really highlighted as much. Maybe it could be or should be. I think even just an awareness of that gender gap. I don't know how aware staff and teachers and administrators are of the data and what it looks like there with pretty, I guess, expected gender gaps. But on the other hand, how are they being addressed to narrow those? Because they're pretty wide in some areas. And then secondly, with math at OAS, this has come up multiple times, like, well, is there a need to review curriculum or see if that's the right fit? Those scores do drop, and they're still really great and fabulous. And even statewide, you see that difference in ELA and math. So that's all to be expected. On the other hand, you do see a little bit below 80% almost in every grade level at some point in time, and that 8th grade group in particular this year. But I think just some more analysis and better understanding of what's going on there. And I think in my time on the board, it's come up like I'm forgetting the name of the book. Big Ideas, is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. Like how effective it's big. It is just, I don't know when that cycle is for the OAS curriculum for math, but it has come up.
Coming up, yeah, we're in process actually with the state.
That's what I thought. Good point. Yeah. Just lost track of which one it was.
The state is just about to issue its list of approved math curriculum that meets.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I'm not repeating myself now. I remember.
So that's a process we're engaging in now, the math team at OIS.
And just add, I just looked up, because you were talking about gender gap and science and what happens in Miramani. So I just was curious to see what happens in the last few years. So they have flipped. So the girls are outperforming in gender, in science at
You're able to look
80s.
that up just now?
I just did 86 to 82%.
That's great.
Last
Wow.
This is 24, 25.
Did they just have a
The one
presentation
that-
on it? No, I looked up the state's scores. So, they're,
So the 11th graders.
The current seniors.
Current
Is that what you're
seniors.
They have to test in either the 11th or the 12th grade. Well, actually, we can
11th
test in
grade.
any grade.
they can test 10th,
Oh, no, they-
11th, or 12th grade, one time only.
Right.
So it depends which science.
Right.
So,
a difference.
I just looked up. So it is, they do. Yeah, and we can give you more details. Yeah. As we share more data, but just, that was a good flip of the data in the last few years. Go maths. Yeah.
That makes you wonder, like, what are they doing there?
Well, it's a good collaboration time for all of our departments to meet together.
Well, even in Wall of Orinda too, just to kind of compare and see how it's.
I don't know if Eve, do you have any questions or thoughts or anything else that we need?
No, just really echoing what others have said in terms of the thoroughness, and really I love the fact that data is giving us these kind of great areas to go tackle. So thank you, appreciate that. And yeah, I do think the science one and the math is particularly interesting, but I think that there's a lot of good ideas about how to figure out more, and then think more about how to address it, or if there are things that can be done to provide the right support for all students to fulfill their potential.
Thank you, Eve. Is there any public comment? All right, this is just a discussion item, so really appreciate this amazing report, Sarah, and for answering all our questions. So great data.
Thank you, Sarah.
We
take a
break?
short break.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll take a short 8-minute recess.
Done playing, city council meeting.
No, we're not doing that, but thank you.
All right, okay. Welcome back from our recess. Measure E and I, yay.
I think Vince, you're presenting all of these?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Let's start with A.
Okay, pleasure to see you all again. So the saga of the Sleepy Hollow NPR is coming to a close. We are finally, it is not the light at the end of the tunnel, we're out of the tunnel.
Yay.
So this particular change order, despite not really wanting to approve another one, is on its face and in its content valid. So the background on this was in the summer of 2024, we gave Saucil a deadline to supply all of the change orders that they would need to perform the altered scope of work so that we could complete the work in that summer. We thought we had met that deadline and they submitted all change orders and that was processed at the end of summer and the September board meeting. That change order was approved, processed, and they've been paid for that work. However, they submitted a late change order in February of 25 that we did not know about. And we attempted to negotiate with them to drop the change order. Their subcontractor refused to drop their claim for additional funds due to the fact that they had put out that work and their costs were valid. So in speaking with district council and our own claims team, despite there being contractual requirements for submitting change orders in a timely fashion, that provision has very rarely held up in claims. Additionally, what courts typically side towards is if the district received the benefit of the work, then they are therefore required to pay for it, regardless of when the cost was submitted. Being that this is about $18,000, it is not really worth fighting, is the thought process, and a claim would cost far more than that. So it is our recommendation to approve this final change order. We know it's final because it is also accompanied by the notice of completion at the end, just a preview. So to close this project out and get us to right across the finish line.
Like that finish line.
So Vince, I know you keep saying final, but like this is it. This is Saucil is complete with Sleepy Hollow?
Complete, over and done. They have completed all warranty, punch lists, and contract scope work. So with this change order and their notice of completion, the only final thing left to deal with is getting them their final retention payment.
Okay.
That's it. And then getting their final release of claims, and then we will wash our hands of that.
Okay. That's great. Any questions, comments from the board?
I mean, I assume you just looked at all of their items and they're pretty valid.
Yes, they submitted their time cost over the storage period. They provided photo verification at time when they submitted their pay applications in the period back in the summer of 24. So the material was clearly stored and then brought back on site. So their costs were deemed valid.
All right, is there any public comment? This is up for action.
No comment on mine.
No public comment. With that in mind, I move that the board approve the change order from Saucil. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Hillary.
Trustee Phillips?
Is she muted?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavat?
Aye.
Trustee Wiener?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And moving on to B.
So the next item is the additional inspection services for the modernization project. During the course of the modernization, the original proposal by the inspector of record is just an estimate of the number of hours it would require to perform all the inspections. One of the campuses specifically required a bit more inspection due to some unforeseen conditions and expanded scope for things like ADA compliance and ramps. So we had to have an inspector available for more hours than originally proposed. So this is to get us through this first phase of work, and there are some additional hours folded in for what is expected in the second phase of work next summer.
Any public comments?
There's no public comment.
Any Discussion from the board? No. Okay, with that, I move that the board approve the proposal of Interface Engineering. Is there a second?
This is Vinnie, I second.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavant?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to our next action item.
So this is a proposal slash change order for Terraphase Engineering for additional surveys, testing, and monitoring for Sleepy Hollow. So during the course of the year, some black spots were discovered in the ceiling. So in an abundance of caution, we would like to add that scope to Terraphase's contract to allow them to perform sampling, monitoring, and testing of those areas in those specific 3 classrooms prior to the work beginning this summer. And additionally, just to make sure that there is nothing harmful in the rooms while the children are there.
And if they do find anything, there'll be remediation that's included.
So the remediation is not included. This is to
Never.
yeah, this is to determine what's currently there. Once the testing and the surveys come back and we have results, if there's any remedial action required, we'll direct Terraphase to give us a list of all actions required and then take whatever steps are necessary to ensure, first of all, the safety of the children in the classrooms, and then secondary, the operation of the campus.
Thank you. Any public comment?
There's nothing.
And I realize I said Terraphase on the last.
I was thinking that after.
So do we need to do that item B before? Again, because I said Terraphase Engineering in my motion.
Instead of.
Yeah.
So benchmark.
Mhm. Should we just do it just to?
Sure.
Okay, sorry
It's okay.
about that. So I move that the board approve the amendment to the existing agreement with Benchmark Inspections, Inc. for additional services. Is there a
This is
second?
for item
Item
8B.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is Katie, I second.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavant?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And now to item C, Terraphase Engineering Proposal. I move that the board approve the proposal of Terraphase Engineering.
This is Katie, I second.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavant?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, item D, DSA closeout and certification of Delray HVAC project.
Yes, this is just the completion for the mechanical upgrades to the HVAC project. This is coming a bit late, as in my previous update, we were assigned a document reviewer by DSA. They retired. They didn't tell anybody. So we were reassigned somebody else, and they have begun processing the remainder of the closeout paperwork from the first round of projects. So we are simply closing this out with the state and getting it certified.
Any questions? Any public comment?
No comments.
Okay. Is there a motion?
This is Hillary. I move that the board approve payment to DSA for final closeout and certification of the Delray HVAC.
This is Vinnie, I second.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavant?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And last action under E and I is item E, notice of completion of the NPR project with Sleepy Hollow.
So as foreshadowed, this is the notice of completion for the NCR Sleepy Hollow. In not so many words, we're all done.
Yay.
That's it. So we'll file this notice of completion as a requirement of contracts. This will trigger our 60-day waiting period for any additional claims. Once that's done, we release retention and close out the project.
Second.
Fantastic. Yes. Excellent.
Great night.
Any public comment?
No.
Any discussion, questions? I move that the board approve the notice of completion for the Sleepy Hollow NPR project. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Hillary.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavant?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yay.
Thank you.
very much.
Happy to do those.
Thank you.
All right, we come to our board policies. This is an action discussion item, action item A, items B through M. Is there any discussion on any of these policies, any public comment?
There's been no public comment. The policies have been updated based on the CSBA guidance and due to changes in regulations and laws.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve? Are you?
No.
Okay.
This is Hillary. I move that we approve board policies in 9B through M.
This is Katie, I second.
Trustee Phillips,
Aye.
trustee Adantivot,
Aye.
trustee Weiner,
Aye.
vice president Shogun,
Aye.
president Collins Coleman,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, communications. Oh, yes.
So good evening, Board of Trustees, District Leadership, Orinda families, and community members. I'm Charles Sharon, and I'm president of the Orinda Education Association. As we settle into the rhythm of the school year and the vibrant colors of autumn, I want to take this opportunity to shine a light on the core of what makes our district so exceptional, the incredible work being done in every classroom by our dedicated educators. As you know, every student who walks through our doors arrives with their own unique set of strengths, challenges, and learning styles. Meeting these diverse needs is not a simple task, and I want to emphasize how hard our educators are working to ensure every child in OUSD is seen, supported, and challenged. This dedication goes far beyond curriculum delivery. Our educators are spending countless hours on providing differentiated instruction. We skillfully adapt lessons and materials so that students who need extra support can grasp the fundamentals, while those who are ready to soar are given opportunities for deeper exploration. We provide targeted support. We utilize data from early assessments. We heard about that earlier tonight in that amazing presentation. Thank you, it's so detailed. We want to identify specific areas where students might be struggling and providing small group one-on-one or one-on-one interventions to close those gaps. And we're seeing that we're making a lot of progress. We also provide very important social emotional well-being by creating classroom environments where students feel safe, connected, and ready to learn, recognizing that emotional well-being is the foundation for academic success. This critical work of individualizing learning cannot happen in isolation. The success of our students achieved is a direct result of the strong collaborative partnership between our professional educators and our engaged parents and guardians. Thank you for your continued partnership to all of our families out there and everyone else within your extended families to support our kids. By maintaining these open lines of communication, sharing your unique insights, and collaborating on your child's journey, you are directly supporting the dedication of our educators. Thank you for entrusting us with your children and for supporting the effort to see that every one of them thrive and feel good about themselves and have joy. And really look forward to going out in the world and sharing all that we do for them to make it a better place. We want to see a better world. And we feel like we're doing that here in Orinda. We know we are. And we know that our kids are going to make a profound impact and we're going to be proud. And we're going to say we were part of that journey. And there's hope. That's what we keep saying. There's hope. Don't ever give up. We tell our kids, you are our hope. We were here for you, and now we're passing it on. So we're going to see great things from these kids. We know it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. All right.
We don't have a CSEA rep.
Right. And any cabinet update?
No, we'll just say, I think it was a great professional development day. So thank you for great leadership. It was a really good day on Monday. But we also had a good special ed day on that day. And worked with our classified and our Basque day as well. So it was a good day on Monday. Yeah. So other than that, we're rolling with the committees.
All right.
Committees and schedule, committees and homework. And we'll bring more updates on that as the year goes on.
All right, board reports. Steve, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention, attended the school bus, the Long Range School Bus Committee meeting with our joint other school representatives from different schools, cities, of course, the school bus organization itself from across La Orinda. Really interesting discussions around the fun puzzle that is the mixture of school bus size, neighborhoods, bell schedules, and of course, financial considerations. And I have to say, Orinda does a good job of actually aligning with our bell schedules, as many of you may know, in order to get each bus to actually take 2 trips, which is actually relatively unique around the La Orinda area. There were some interesting things to look into that some of the other school districts are exploring. I've already discussed with Aida. But otherwise, that was probably the main takeaways. So turn it over to the next one.
Let's see, since the last board meeting, I attended a coordinating council meeting. We had our all board site visit at OIS, which was really great. And I loved the trivia. Yeah, that was fun. And then tomorrow, Katie and I will be at the scheduling committee meeting. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, in addition to OIS, Katie and I had a board coffee. Not you, who was it?
Anyway, we need I didn't. Well, I wanted her to have something to say. We need like 8 periods to go out. Sorry.
Didn't you go to OIS with Katie?
No.
We all there. I was like, I ran into the two of you.
I also have coffee with Katie separately, but
Benita and I did the board coffee. And then I did attend the homework committee, and it was a really, really great. The parent part, really great turnout.
I was at OIS with most people here.
The whole board was there.
The whole board was there. And then I just went to Wagner Ranch, just as the site representative or liaison. That was a really good visit. And at the mayor's meeting last Tuesday. Yeah. So it's good to see what's happening in Orinda and at high school. And then I also have the schedule committee coming up and the homework committee. And I'm pretty sure I'm at coordinating council next week.
We had the Delray site visit this week. This week we had Delray Boo Fest, which was super fun.
We had like 900 people.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful day.
This was almost 900 tickets.
Yeah, it was amazing. The OAS site visit was wonderful. I love the trivia. And was it coordinating council? One. No, not this
You were
week.
at one.
Yeah, thank you. One. And then the OAS choir concert in coordination with Miramonte was wonderful, beautiful. And then the Miramonte Shakespeare, I know it's not our district, but Miramonte Shakespeare extravaganza last Friday. It was also fun. So, yeah, lots of other meetings coming up. Okay. All right. We come to the calendar, items 11B through K. Any discussion, questions, any public comment?
There's no public comment.
No public comment. All right, we can have I move that the board approve consent calendar items 11B through 11K.
This is Benita, I second.
Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavat?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner?
Aye.
Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Future agenda items are listed there for November and December meetings. Can't believe we're talking about the end of the year.
We are starting our school highlights. We'll have single plays, which we talked about, and a food service report is in November. And
Samples are welcome.
samples are welcome. Did you hear that? Mika. And then December 15th is our annual reorganization of the board meeting and first interim attendance and special ed programming. So that's that's the year.
That is by fast.
So, yeah. With that,
First Halloween. First Halloween, homecoming and Halloween.
not part of the board. We didn't put it on. We didn't put it on here.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
All right, we come to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Benita. I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
A second. Oh, you did. Sorry. Who was the second? I'm sorry.
And I think.
I said second.
Okay. Trustee Phillips?
Aye.
Trustee Nantavat?
Aye.
Trustee Weiner? Aye. Trustee Vice President Shogun?
Aye.
President Collins Coleman?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
We adjourn.
Thank you, Eve. Have a good night.
Midnight.
We're acting like it's midnight. Yeah, that's how it is.